Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. Monday Night Raw tonight was from the Target Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Monday Night Raw was back to its regular scheduled time at 8 o'clock, considering, they were overseas for the past weeks, where the show here started at 3, 1 week it started at 4, and then the last week was at 3 o'clock that they started, but Monday Night Raw is back to 8 o'clock, 8 to 10:30. But Monday Night Raw tonight, I thought it was a okay show tonight. We had the Women's Intercontinental Championship on the line, where Lyra Valkyria defended the title against Bayley. We had the Creed Brothers and El Grande Americano, aka Chad Gable. They had taken on the LWO. We had the New Day versus the War Raiders. This is for the World Tag Team Championship. And then we had Penta versus Dominik Mysterio. We also had the Women's World Championship situation, heading into WrestleMania, where Adam Pearce ended up addressing that between Rhea and Io and Bianca Belair. But overall, Monday Night Raw, okay show it was tonight. But we did get a confirmation from Adam Pearce earlier in the day on WWE's social media pages, and it was announced that at WrestleMania it will be a fatal four-way for the Intercontinental Championship, and it is going to be Penta versus Braun Breaker versus Dominik Mysterio versus Finn Balor for the Intercontinental Championship in a fatal four-way at WrestleMania. So there you go, we got confirmation of that. But anyway, let's jump right into the review. Monday Night Raw opened up tonight with Adam Pearce. Adam Pearce was in the ring to address the Women's World Championship situation heading to WrestleMania between Rhea, Io, and Bianca Belair. So Pearce welcomed everyone to Monday Night Raw. He ended up saying that it's time to get down to business. He ended up saying we all saw what happened last week, revolving around the Women's World Championship. He ended up saying that the situation at WrestleMania needs to be addressed. So Adam Pearce ended up introducing Io Sky out first, the Women's World Champion. So Io made her way out, and she shook hands with Adam Pearce. Pearce then ended up introducing the EST, Bianca Belair. So Bianca came out, she got into the ring, and then Pearce ended up introducing Rhea Ripley, to which Adam Pearce botched, because he ended up saying, representing the Judgment Day, Rhea Ripley. And I'm like, Pearce, do you know that Rhea hasn't been part of the Judgment Day since last year? Since Dominik turned on Rhea at SummerSlam? Did you forget that, Pearce? No joke, I'm not joking. That's what he said on the mic tonight. Representing the Judgment Day, Rhea Ripley. So Rhea ended up making her way out. She got into the ring. Pearce ended up thanking Io, Bianca, and Rhea for joining him in the ring. Pearce ended up saying that he takes responsibility for what happened last week. He ended up saying that he was wrong to put Bianca Belair as a special guest referee, because he assumed the three of them could handle this like professionals. Pearce ended up saying that there's a way to right this wrong. So he ended up announcing that at WrestleMania, Io Sky will defend the Women's World Championship against Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley in a triple threat match. So Pearce then produced a contract and ended up asking Io, Bianca, and Rhea to sign the contract. So Bianca ended up saying a few weeks ago this would have pissed her off, because she earned her way to WrestleMania. She kept saying that they told her to win the Elimination Chamber. She did that. And that she was going to be a special guest referee. And she did that. Bianca kept saying that she did it all through blood, sweat, and tears. She kept saying, oh, well, Rhea thinks she could just walk in and do whatever she wants and get added to the match. So Bianca ended up saying that she doesn't care because she knows Rhea isn't going anywhere. And that she's happy Rhea is being added to the match. Bianca ended up going on to say that she's not afraid of Rhea. She went through Elimination Chamber and watched two of her closest friends tear each other apart. And she still overcame. Bianca ended up saying that she is going to win the Women's World Championship at WrestleMania and will go through Rhea to get it. So Bianca then signed the contract. Rhea then began to speak, but she was cut off by Bianca because Bianca ended up telling Rhea to shut up. Bianca then shoved the contract into Rhea, and she kept saying that she already got what she wants. Rhea then picked up the contract, and she ended up signing the contract. Rhea threw the contract at Bianca, to which Bianca caught the contract. Io started to talk, but Rhea ended up shoving Io out of the way. So once again, Io is the third wheel in this situation. And this is your Women's World Champion. When you look back at Io as Women's World Champion, all you're going to remember is she was the third wheel and she kept on getting shoved by Bianca and Rhea. That's it. That's the only thing you'll remember from Io's Women's World Championship title reign. So we had Io end up throwing the mic down, and she angrily ended up going to leave the ring. Pierce ended up stopping Io, and he stepped in between Bianca and Rhea. Io then ended up hitting a springboard missile dropkick to Rhea, which knocked Rhea into Bianca, which that looked very stiff from Io. So Io then signed the contract. She grabbed the Women's World Championship that was on a podium, and she ended up leaving the ring, and that was how the segment ended. But we all seen this triple threat match for the Women's World Championship coming a mile away for weeks, and tonight Adam Pearce made the match official. But this should be a decent match at WrestleMania here between Io, Rhea, and Bianca. But it was an okay segment to open Monday Night Raw tonight with this. And then we saw Finn Balor. Finn Balor was shocked that Dominik was added to the Intercontinental Championship match, the Fatal 4-Way, at WrestleMania. Dominik was all excited. And Liv Morgan ended up saying that she got Dominik added to the match. Balor ended up saying that it'll be time for Dominik to prove he has what it takes to win at WrestleMania. He ended up saying that people say Dominik isn't tough enough and doesn't have the killer instinct, and they say that he is a loser. Balor ended up saying that Dominik can prove them wrong by beating Penta all by himself. So Carlito ended up saying to Dominik that he has his back. He then ended up telling him, oh, I went to the Mall of America today, which of course is the hugest mall in all of North America in Minneapolis. So, and that's where, they shot Jingle All the Way in the Mall of America. That one scene where Arnold Schwarzenegger is chasing after the ball to get himself possibly a Turbo Man doll, and he's chasing the ball through the mall. That's the Mall of America. But that was that. And then we had the first match of the night. Bayley versus Lyra Valkyria. This was for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. And this was a good match here. Both Bayley and Lyra gave it all they got here. It was a very physical match between the both of them. So the match ended up getting on the way, and we had Lyra end up hitting a snapmare to Bayley. Bayley ended up hooking a side headlock on Lyra. Lyra ended up whipping Bayley off, and she ended up going for a flip. Bayley ended up rolling Lyra up, to which Lyra ended up kicking out. So both Bayley and Lyra ended up circling the ring. Lyra ended up taking Bayley down with a drop toe hold. Bayley ended up rebounding, and she ended up rolling Lyra up, to which Lyra kicked out. Bayley then blocked the knee from Lyra, and she ended up kneeing Lyra in the face. Bayley ended up going for a sunset flip bomb into the corner to Lyra, but Lyra was still standing. Lyra then rolled Bayley up again, to which Bayley kicked out. Lyra then ended up hitting some strikes to Bayley, which Lyra then followed up with a Northern Light suplex, to which she ended up going for the cover, and Bayley kicked out. So we had Lyra end up sending Bayley into the ropes for a spin kick, but Bayley ended up avoiding that. Lyra ended up managing to send Bayley out of the ring, and she ended up hitting a wrecking ball drop kick to Bayley. So Lyra ended up sending Bayley back into the ring, and she headed to the top rope. Lyra then ended up delivering a flying crossbody block to Bayley, to which she ended up going for the cover, and Bayley kicked out. And then as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Bayley was in control of the match. She ended up applying a single leg crab to Lyra. Lyra ended up turning over to kick Bayley away and break the single leg crab. So both women were trading forearm shots. Bayley ended up sending Lyra to the apron, and she snapped Lyra off the middle rope, to which Lyra then fell to the floor. Bayley then got out of the ring, and she ended up charging at Lyra. She slid through the turnbuckles to hit a knee to Lyra's face. Bayley then ended up getting in the ring, and she ended up charging for a suicide dive, but Lyra moved out of the way, and Bayley was sent crashing to the floor. Lyra then got into the ring, and she ended up charging for a suicide dive, but Bayley ended up catching Lyra, and Bayley then hit the belly to belly to the floor to Lyra, to which both women were down. So the ref was counting, and so both Bayley and Lyra ended up making their way back to the ring as the ref ended up counting to 9. So Bayley then ended up lifting Lyra. She ended up going for a slam, but Lyra countered with an arm drag. Lyra then ended up hitting an Insecurity, which she followed up with a gut wrench sit-out powerbomb, to which she went for the cover, and Bayley ended up kicking out. We had Lyra end up finding out a suplex attempt from Bayley, and she ended up dropping down for a powerbomb attempt, to which Lyra's back ended up giving out, so she ended up dropping Bayley. Bayley took advantage of that, and she ended up hitting a sunset flip powerbomb into the turnbuckles to Lyra. So Bayley ended up kicking Lyra back, but Lyra fought back and delivered a tornado DDT to Bayley. Lyra then ended up rolling through, and she ended up hitting a fisherman suplex to Bayley, to which she ended up going for the cover, and Bayley ended up kicking out. We had Lyra end up going to the top rope to deliver a missile drop kick to Bayley, but Bayley picked Lyra out of midair, and she ended up applying the Boston Crab to Lyra. So Lyra was crawling her way to the bottom rope, but Bayley pulled Lyra into the center of the ring, and the crowd was, so into this match. They really were. And they were, rooting for Bayley to win the Women's Intercontinental Championship. When Bayley had Lyra in that Boston Crab, the crowd was just cheering at that. So Lyra ended up grabbing Bayley's ankle, so Bayley ended up letting go of the Boston Crab, and she attempted to hit the Rose Plant. But Lyra ended up countering that, and she ended up pinning Bayley with a jackknife pin. And there you go. Lyra Valkyria ended up winning the match, retaining the Women's Intercontinental Championship. Post-match, Lyra celebrated in the ring. She ended up going to shake Bayley's hand. Bayley then ended up slapping Lyra's hand away, and she ended up going to leave. Bayley then ended up stopping, and she ended up getting back in the ring to hug Lyra. She then ended up holding Lyra's arm up, so a sign of respect there from Bayley. Bayley putting over, younger talent. So, of course, Bayley and Lyra will team together on SmackDown for a shot at the Women's Tag Team Championship at WrestleMania. So they're going to be teaming together. But overall, this was a good match between Lyra and Bayley. Very physical match between the both of them. And now we had Kathy Kelly. Kathy Kelly was backstage with Bert Kreischer. And I'm like, who? He's a comedian that's going to have a Netflix special. So Chad Gable and Ivy Nile and the Creed brothers, American Made, end up interrupting. Gable ended up saying that he is a fan of Kreischer. Gable ended up saying that Kreischer must be a fan of his because he's here to see Minnesota's only shining star. He ended up saying he'll get to see his boys, the Creed brothers, team with El Grande Americano to take on the LWO. To which Kreischer ended up saying to Chad Gable, he's not here to see American Made. So the Alpha Academy, Otis, Akira Tozawa, and Maxine Dupree end up walking in. And Otis and Kreischer end up both ripping their shirts off, and pretty much that was basically that. And I'm like, okay, random segment here. And then we saw Jackie Redmond. Jackie Redmond was backstage with AJ Styles. Jackie Redmond ended up telling Styles that Logan Paul had a lot of audacity last week. And where is Styles' head at? Styles ended up telling Jackie Redmond that he is in a good headspace right now. He ended up saying that he can embarrass Logan Paul on the grandest stage of them all because he cannot beat experience. So then Karrion Kross and Scarlett walked up to Styles. Kross ended up asking Styles where experience got him last week. He ended up saying that they can't have this, AJ Styles. So Styles ended up asking Kross, what is Kross's obsession with the old AJ Styles? So Styles ended up saying that he will talk to Adam Pearce and give Kross a taste next week. So there you go. It's going to be Styles versus Kross next week on Monday Night Raw. It's going to be the go-home show for WrestleMania. And then we had the LWO, Dragon Lee, Joaquin Wilde, and Cruz del Toro. They have taken on the Creed brothers and El Grande Americano, a.k.a. Chad Gable. So, of course, Dragon Lee, Joaquin Wilde, and Cruz del Toro were accompanied by Rey Mysterio. The Creed brothers and El Grande Americano were accompanied by Ivy Nile. And this was a decent match here. So, when El Grande Americano ended up coming out, he was over with the crowd. And I'm like, do you all know that it is Chad Gable in the mask and the whole get-up? It's Hulk Hogan, Mr. America, all over again. So the match got underway with Brutus Creed, and he started off with Cruz del Toro. Brutus ended up taking Del Toro down and applied a hammerlock on him. Del Toro ended up getting out of the hammerlock with a snapmare, but Brutus ended up running Del Toro over with a shoulder tackle. Julius Creed ended up tagging in. Del Toro ended up hitting an arm drag to Julius Creed, and he tagged in Joaquin Wilde. So Joaquin Wilde and Cruz del Toro ended up taking Julius down. Del Toro ended up helping Joaquin Wilde splash Julius, and he ended up going for the cover, to which Julius ended up kicking out too. Joaquin Wilde ended up hitting a spinning head scissors takeover, which was followed by an armbar attempt on Julius. So we had the Creed brothers and El Grande Americano end up running. But we had Cruz del Toro, Joaquin Wilde end up cutting them off. Also Dragon Lee as well. So we had the LWO going back and forth with splashes on El Grande Americano and the Creed brothers. They then end up hitting American Made and El Grande Americano with triple somersault sentons, which was good. So we had American Made end up hitting the LWO with 3 superplexes. So then Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Julius ended up taking Dragon Lee down, and Julius ended up climbing to the top rope. Dragon Lee ended up knocking Julius into the Tree of Woe, and he ended up hitting a double stomp. So Brutus and Del Toro ended up tagging in. Del Toro hit a springboard crossbody block. He then knocked El Grande Americano off the apron. Del Toro then ended up taking Brutus down. He then ended up hitting Julius with a Hurricanrana. We had later on El Grande Americano tagged himself in, and he rolled Del Toro up with a handful of tights, to which Del Toro ended up kicking out. Dragon Lee ended up tagging in. So Dragon Lee and El Grande Americano end up going at it. Dragon Lee ended up getting El Grande Americano in a powerbomb position. Del Toro ended up diving, but Americano ended up countering into a Spanish fly out of midair, which that looked like a very nasty landing. So Dragon Lee ended up yelling at El Grande Americano for ripping off his mask. Dragon Lee ended up kicking Americano in the face, and he ended up hitting a sit-out powerbomb. Julius then ended up crushing Dragon Lee with a shooting star press. Julius then landed on Dragon Lee's knees. So Joaquin Wilde then ended up using Del Toro and Julius's backs as steps to hit Brutus with a wild somersault senton to the floor, which was good. Del Toro then clotheslined Julius over the top rope, and he ended up hitting him with a corkscrew plancha to the floor. So we saw Ivy Nile. Ivy Nile ended up handing El Grande Americano an object, and El Grande Americano put that under his mask. Rey Mysterio ended up seeing that, and he was yelling at El Grande Americano as El Grande Americano was on the top rope, and Americano ended up headbutting Rey Mysterio in the face. So Dragon Lee then attacked El Grande Americano, and he was ripping at his mask. But El Grande Americano ended up headbutting Dragon Lee, which knocked Dragon Lee to the canvas. Americano then followed up with a flying headbutt, and he ended up going for the cover. And there you go. American made and El Grande Americano ended up winning the match. Overall, this was a good match between the Creed brothers, El Grande Americano, and the LWO. And then we had the Ring General, Gunther, the World Heavyweight Champion. He made his way down to the ring. He was smiling. He was wearing a red tie in honor of him bloodying and beating Jimmy Uso last week. So we had Gunther end up standing on the commentary table, and he posed with the World Heavyweight Championship. Gunther got into the ring, and he was preparing to speak, but he got interrupted by Mr. Yeet, Jey Uso. Yeet. So Jey Uso came out, and he was pissed off. He was not in a celebrating mood where he's doing the yeet. He's now focused. Jey Uso is now focused on Gunther after what Gunther did to Jimmy last week and bloodying him up. So Gunther ended up removing his jacket. He started to roll up his sleeves as Jey Uso was making his way down from the crowd. So Jey got into the ring, and he ripped the mic out of Gunther's hand. So Gunther was shown laughing at Jimmy. Jey ended up removing his glasses, and he stared deep into Gunther's eyes. Jey then lifted the mic, and he calmly asked, "Gunther, you have a mother?" To which he was all confused. Gunther looked all confused about that. Jey ended up asking if Gunther talks to his mother. To which Gunther ended up saying, "I do." So Jey was like, "Oh, what do you talk about? Does she ask about the wife and grandson? What did you eat? That's regular family stuff." Jey Uso ended up saying that he has a mother too. he ended up saying, does Gunther want to know what they talked about this week? Jay ended up saying that he had to tell his mom that her oldest son was laid up in a hospital bed, and her oldest son got 15 stitches across his forehead. He ended up saying that she asked him, why didn't you protect him, Josh? Jay ended up saying that he never lies to his mother. He ended up saying that he told her he was afraid of Gunther, and Gunther had the drop on him and was 3 steps ahead of him. He ended up saying that it wasn't enough, and Gunther got his family involved. Jay ended up saying that Gunther knows how he feels about his family, especially Jimmy. So Jay at this point was now pacing in the ring. So Jay ended up saying that Gunther violated his brother and left him a bloody pulp. And he ended up saying that Jimmy's blood was all over Gunther's body, and that Jimmy's blood was on his hands too. Jay ended up saying that he never felt more hopeless, helpless, pissed off, and damn near scared. He ended up saying that Gunther made the whole world stop by violating his twin in front of him, and that it made his heart stop. Jay ended up saying that the crazy thing is that in his darkest moment in time in front of the world, a light bulb went off. And Jay ended up saying that he realized that he's not afraid of Gunther anymore. Jay ended up saying that before WrestleMania, Gunther can hug and kiss his family. He ended up saying before WrestleMania, he will lay his head down and say a prayer, and he'll pray for Gunther, but more so for himself. Jay ended up saying that he'll ask the Lord to forgive him for the man he's about to become. He ended up saying that at WrestleMania, he'll get Gunther for himself, Jimmy, and his whole family. Jay ended up saying that he will take the World Heavyweight Championship. So Jay then threw the mic at Gunther, and Gunther was looking a little worried there with what Jay had to say. But overall, this was a very good promo from Jay, a very strong promo. So that was basically that. And then we saw Adam Pearce, and Natalya and Maxine Dupree were talking with him. Pearce ended up telling them to jump into the deep end. So it looks like we're going to be getting a tag team of Natalya and Maxine Dupree. God help us all. So Rey Mysterio ended up walking into Adam Pearce's office. He ended up telling Pearce that he wants to face the idiot who mocks everything he stands for. Rey ended up telling Adam Pearce that he wants to expose him for the fraud El Grande Americano really is. And Rey ended up saying that he wants to pick the place, and that is WrestleMania. So Adam Pearce then made the match official. So now it's going to be Rey Mysterio versus El Grande Americano, aka Chad Gable, at WrestleMania. So that's that. And then we had the New Day, Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. They have taken on the War Raiders, Eric and Ivar. This was for the World Tag Team Championship. And we had Tony Hinchcliffe, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He is going to be the host of the Roast of WrestleMania. And he was on commentary for this match with Michael Cole and Pat McAfee. And the Roast of WrestleMania is not going to be shown on Peacock or, WWE's YouTube. It's going to be, not televised. You're going to have to be there to experience it. But this was a okay match here. Of course, the New Day, Kofi and Xavier, they're pretty much dead as a heel team because, they build them up to be like this heel going after Big E, saying, oh, you were never there for us, Big E. But now you want to come out, and, say, you want to come back with us? After that, the New Day, nobody cares. Nobody cares about the New Day as heels. So, Kofi started off the match against Ivar. Ivar ended up quickly taking Kofi down. Kofi ended up quickly retreating from the ring. He he regrouped and tagged in Xavier Woods. Eric then also tagged in, so Xavier Woods and Eric ended up going at it. So Kofi ended up distracting Eric, and that led to Xavier Woods end up attacking Eric from behind. So Eric ended up fighting back with a double clothesline to the New Day. Ivar tagged in, and he pinned Kofi with a sidewalk slam, which was followed by a basement crossbody block. Eric then tagged back in. He ended up sending Kofi into the corner, but he ended up slingshotting over Kofi. Eric then ended up grabbing Kofi and slammed him. Woods ended up running in, and Eric slammed Woods as well. Ivar tagged in. Kofi was then slammed again. Eric then ended up slamming Ivar onto Kofi. Eric then sent Xavier Woods over the top rope. Woods then ended up attacking Eric as he approached him, and he grabbed a steel chair. Eric then ended up decking Woods with a forearm. Ivar ended up sending Kofi into the barricade, and Ivar ended up charging. Eric ended up using his momentum to send him harder into Xavier Woods against the barricade, and pretty much Monday Night Raw with the commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Eric and Kofi ended up tagging in. Eric ended up hitting Xavier Woods with a gauntlet rib breaker and a knee to Woods' face. So the match ended in a disqualification because Woods ended up grabbing a steel chair. Ivar ripped the chair out of Woods' hands, and he ended up hitting Woods in the ribs with the chair. So the ref saw that and called for the bell. So of course, the War Raiders still retained the World Tag Team Championship because, of course, titles don't change hands on a disqualification. So post-match, Kofi ended up rocking Ivar with the chair shot to the back of his neck. Eric ended up attacking Kofi, and we had Kofi end up wedging the chair in the corner, and Woods and Kofi end up driving Eric head first into the chair. Xavier Woods and Kofi end up sending Ivar into the timekeeper's area. They then end up getting into the ring to concentrate on Eric. Woods then grabbed Eric by his beard and placed Eric's head into the chair. So we all know what happened with Eric, where he had that terrible neck injury. So officials and refs end up running down to prevent Woods from doing anything crazy to Eric because, of the neck injury that Eric had. So pretty much that was that. But overall, okay match it was. And Tony Hinchcliffe's commentary, he was awful on commentary in my opinion. So then we had Penta versus Dominik Mysterio. And this was a decent match here. Match got on the way. We had Penta and Dominik end up blocking up. Dominik ended up getting to the corner, and he shoved Penta back. Penta ended up grabbing a waistlock on Dominik. So then both Penta and Dominik were chaining chops to each other. Dominik ended up taking Penta down and started punching away at him. Dominik ended up sending Penta into the corner, and he ended up hitting a quarter clothesline to Penta. Dominik ended up punching Penta down and backed him to the corner. Dominik ended up hitting a shoulder thrust to Penta. He then ended up sending Penta into the ropes, but Penta ducked a clothesline, and he ended up hitting a hurricanrana to Dominik. Penta then followed up with a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker and a reverse sling blade to Dominik. Dominik rolled out of the ring. Carlito, who was also out there, ended up checking on Dominik. Penta then ended up wiping both Dominik and Penta out with a dive off the top rope to the floor. So then Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Dominik was in control of the match. He ended up kicking Penta. He ended up attempting a diving attack, and Dominik ended up hitting the Three Amigos to Penta. So Dominik ended up covering Penta, and Penta ended up kicking out. Penta ended up hitting the ropes, but Dominik ended up drop kicking Penta in his knees. He then ended up setting up for the 619, but Penta ended up super kicking Dominik down. Penta then ended up kicking Dominik down, and he hit a handstand slingshot corner dropkick, to which he went for the cover, and Dominik ended up kicking out. We had Dominik end up getting out of a Penta driver, and he ended up whipping on a super kick, to which Dominik ended up hitting the ropes, and he ended up hitting Penta with a Mexican destroyer, which was crazy. So Dominik ended up knocking Penta into the ropes, and Dominik laid out the 619 to Penta. Dominik quickly ended up going to the top rope for the frog splash, but Penta got his knees up, and he rolled Dominik up, to which Dominik kicked out. See, at the end of the match, Penta ended up snapping Dominik's arm with the sacrifice, and Penta followed it up with the Penta driver, so he went for the cover, and there you go. Penta ended up winning the match. Post-match, Carlito, he ended up attacking Penta from behind. Carlito ended up dropping Penta with a backstabber, and that led to Carlito and Dominik double teaming up on Penta. And then Braun Breaker ended up coming out, the Intercontinental Champion. So Carlito ended up going to meet Breaker on the aisleway, but Breaker ended up delivering an insane spear to Carlito on the floor. That spear from Braun Breaker to Carlito was absolutely fucking insane. So if you see like a clip of that on WWE social media of Breaker spearing the hell out of Carlito, you can see how insane that spear was from Breaker. So Breaker got into the ring, and he laid out Dominik with the spear. Breaker ended up going to the corner, and he ended up charging to hit Penta with a spear. So, which, he did. Breaker ended up hitting the spear to Penta. So, Breaker ended up going to pose with the Intercontinental Championship. But Finn Balor attacked Breaker from behind, and Balor delivered a fallen elbow drop to Breaker. Balor then ended up holding up the Intercontinental Championship, and Balor ended up turning, and he saw Breaker charging. So he ended up retreating from the ring, and pretty much that was basically that. So this is set up for the Fatal 4-Way for the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania. But overall, really enjoyed what happened at this match with Breaker hitting that insane spear to Carlito, and then hitting that spear to Dominik, which was also another insane spear. So really enjoy how Braun Breaker, lays out his opponents with a spear. And then we got what we're going to see next week on Monday Night Raw, which is going to be from the Golden One Center in Sacramento. This was the go-home show for WrestleMania 41. So we're going to get AJ Styles versus Karrion Kross, and Roman Reigns is going to appear next week on Monday Night Raw. So there you go. Only just two things that were announced that are set for the go-home show for Monday Night Raw, for WrestleMania 41 next week from Sacramento. And we go to the closing segment of Monday Night Raw tonight. Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman was in the ring. He addressed being in CM Punk's corner at WrestleMania. Paul Heyman ended up saying, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman. He ended up saying, I want to state a couple of things for the record, so we can just get it out of the way, and we can move on to WrestleMania. Paul Heyman ended up saying that the first item is that he will always be loyal to his tribal chief, Roman Reigns. He ended up saying that the second item is that he will always be loyal to his best friend in the world, CM Punk. Paul Heyman ended up saying that just because he is loyal to both of them does not mean he will ever in his life be disloyal to either of them. Paul Heyman ended up saying that when it comes to WrestleMania, he wants to get one thing perfectly clear. So Paul Heyman was going to say something, but he got interrupted by Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins ended up making his way out. The crowd got in there. Whoa. So we had Rollins get into the ring. He looked into Paul Heyman's face. He then did his whole shtick, greeted Minneapolis, welcoming them to Monday Night Rollins. He ended up saying, in case they don't know, he is a visionary and a revolutionary. Yes, we all know, Rollins. We all know you're a visionary and a revolutionary. That's how you start off your promos every time you come out there. So Rollins ended up saying that tonight it is not about him, and that it's about Paul Heyman. He ended up saying that Paul Heyman is out here to talk about loyalty, which is the reason why he wanted to say hi to Paul Heyman. Rollins then ended up asking Paul Heyman, whose side are you on? Will you be on the side of your very best friend, CM Punk? Rollins then ended up asking Paul Heyman if he will be the wise man to Roman Reigns. So Rollins ended up saying that Paul Heyman is trying to convince everyone and himself that he can do both at the same time. Rollins ended up saying that it occurred to him over the past week that Paul Heyman is neither. Rollins ended up saying that he knows Heyman will give him the spiel about how Roman Reigns did so much, but Reigns doesn't give a damn about Paul Heyman. Rollins ended up saying that Reigns likes Paul Heyman to shine his shoes, book his private jets, order his steaks, and hand him his Ula Fala. He ended up saying that Reigns doesn't respect Paul Heyman. Rollins ended up saying that he takes Paul Heyman back to the main event of WrestleMania last year, when Reigns lost the title thanks to some well-dressed visionary. He ended up saying that Reigns disappeared into the ether and left Paul Heyman in the hands of his loving family with Sosakoa. So Rollins was like to Paul Heyman, oh, did they treat him well? Were they loving? Rollins ended up saying that they treated Heyman like he was the scum of the earth. Rollins ended up saying that everyone wondered when Reigns would save Paul Heyman. So Rollins ended up asking if Reigns rescued Paul Heyman, to which Paul Heyman shook his head. Rollins ended up saying that Reigns left Paul Heyman to be massacred in his hometown in front of his children, and they had to watch their father be put through a table because Roman Reigns doesn't care about him. Rollins ended up telling Paul Heyman that CM Punk also wasn't there to rescue Heyman. He ended up saying best friends love each other and are there for each other, and they don't use each other when it's convenient. Rollins ended up saying that 10 years ago, Punk walked out of here on everyone, and also Paul Heyman. So Rollins was like, oh, did Punk take you with him? Did Punk take Paul Heyman with him? No. He tried to tear down everything Paul Heyman was building here. So Rollins was like to Heyman, did Punk come back and embrace you? No. So Rollins ended up saying that Punk and Paul Heyman love to reminisce about war games, but Punk wasn't the first choice to be on Team Roman. Rollins was. So Paul Heyman ended up acknowledging that. Rollins ended up telling Paul Heyman to stop him when he's telling lies. He ended up saying that Punk wasn't the first choice. He was the last and only choice. So Rollins was like, oh, did I join Team Roman out of the goodness of his heart because he loved his best friend Paul Heyman? No. Rollins ended up saying that Punk knew he could use it to get a favor out of Paul Heyman. Rollins then ended up saying that Punk is not Paul Heyman's best friend, and Punk doesn't love anyone but himself. So Rollins ended up saying to Paul Heyman that he feels bad for him. So Paul Heyman had tears in his eyes. Rollins ended up saying that Paul Heyman is in an inevitable position. He ended up saying that the easiest solution would be for him to remove himself entirely from the situation. So Rollins was like, let me, Reigns, and Punk battle it out at WrestleMania for the soul of this industry. Rollins ended up saying that he understands that he won't betray his best friend and tribal chief. So, because Paul Heyman was shaking his head. So Rollins ended up saying that if only there were a way to remove Paul Heyman from the situation. Paul Heyman then realizes what is going on. Rollins ends up saying that he would take it as a privilege to remove Paul Heyman from the situation right here and now. He ends up saying that it would be quick and easy. Maybe a boot to the back of the head, one quick stomp, and it's all over. So Rollins like to Paul Heyman, no one is here to save you. Roman Reigns isn't here to save you. Punk isn't here to make friends. And now he's here to make money. Rollins ended up asking Paul Heyman, how much money is he worth? Is he worth this much? So Rollins shoved Paul Heyman lightly. So Rollins like, are you worth this much? To which Rollins ended up slapping Paul Heyman in the face. So Rollins continued to shove Paul Heyman, which that led to Paul Heyman grabbing Rollins' arm. And Paul Heyman ended up shouting to Rollins, don't put your damn hands on me again. So Paul Heyman was irate. And this led to Rollins shoving Paul Heyman to the corner. And this led to CM Punk coming out. CM Punk ran down to save Paul Heyman. Punk started punching away at Rollins. We had Punk and Rollins end up spilling to ringside. Punk ended up sending Rollins over the commentary table. And we had Punk and Rollins end up brawling. They knocked over the Prime Energy station by the commentary table. Punk then ended up sending Rollins into the ring steps. Punk then started punching Rollins in the head. And he pressed Rollins' head on the bottom half of the ring steps, the steel steps. Punk backed up, and he was charging to go for Rollins' stomp on the ring steps. But Rollins avoided that. Rollins got back to the ring. So Punk got into the ring. Rollins then ended up delivering the stomp to Punk. Paul Heyman then checked on Punk. Rollins then sized Paul Heyman up, and Rollins ended up charging. And Rollins was going to stomp Paul Heyman's head. So Rollins ended up stomping the mat near Paul Heyman's head, and Paul Heyman was stunned that Rollins didn't even deliver the stomp to him. So Rollins then got on the mic. He kept saying to Paul Heyman, now you owe me a favor. And that was how Monday Night Raw went off the air. But overall, this was a very good segment to close out the show tonight. And feels like they are laying the groundwork out for Paul Heyman to possibly join forces with Seth Rollins. I think at WrestleMania, this is going to lead to Paul Heyman joining forces with Seth Rollins. Paul Heyman is going to betray his tribal chief Roman Reigns and betray his best friend CM Punk for him to join with Seth Rollins. So that's how the way I see it. But Rollins, of course, is coming off as the heel here in this whole feud here. So this is the Rollins that I like. So, but overall, Monday Night Raw, it was an okay show tonight. But anyway, that's it for the Monday Night Raw review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and until next video, I'll see you all later.